We are going to go ahead and get started. Our next panel session is going to be on community support. If I could get our panel members and presenters to come up here. And to moderate this session, Jason Lessard.
Thanks, Missy. Please help me welcome speakers Todd, Paige, Olivia, Rebanal, and Kate Consenstein to the stage. Hi, Olivia. So one of the things I'm really excited about in regards to mariculture is what this industry can help to provide to communities as far as support, whether it be economic or food security or food sovereignty and so forth. And it's a really exciting time. At the same time, on the flip side of that, it's really important to get the support of the community. And so the panelists here are going to be talking a little bit about that. At the conclusion of all these presentations, questions for our panelists may be taken from the audience. I hope you guys are familiar with the Slido app at this point, but you can submit questions through that app. Again, scan the QR code on the screen and it'll allow you access to the page. And alternatively, if you would prefer to stand up and ask your question in person, you can do that as well. Just raise your hand and somebody will come up to you with a microphone. Our first presenter, Todd Paige with Seaweed and Shellfish and World Wildlife Fund, is presenting an abstract titled Marketing and Communication Strategies for Social License. Please help me welcome Todd.
Hey, good morning, or good afternoon. Post-lunch coma kick in. Hopefully we can keep you awake before while we do this. I am Todd Paige, and this is my second year at World Wildlife Fund. I had about 30 years of marketing brand management in the animal health space. But a small fact is on day 4 of my job, I was here in Juneau at this conference. So you guys really helped create a strong opinion on how I should proceed. Just a quick shout out to World Wildlife. The reason we come to these and the reason our huge team of 4 is here is we believe, World Wildlife Fund believes that mariculture and low trophic farming really can help us in all sorts of ways. It can protect the coastal communities. We can rehabilitate some of the health of the communities, not only the human aspect of it, but the ocean, and of course the food element of kelp and shellfish. It's been pretty amazing journey for the last 2 years. So social license really is marketing in my mind, and that's sort of how I frame it in my own sense. And I just thought I'd frame for you quickly how I think about it. This is not a course in marketing by any means, but it helps sort of my journey as I go through each project. Without good, clear objectives with a marketing plan, you're just going to be spending a lot of time and effort running around. But those objectives should be really clear with 3 things: the right audience, the right message at the right place, the channel. These things need to intersect to really make sure that the last bucket of behavior change happens. And of course, nothing like this would work well if you didn't have good measurement. You need to know what you want to measure going in and then see how you did on the way out. And then it's rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. And I've been rinsing and repeating for 30 years. And I'll tell you, this is definitely the most exciting market I've been in a long, long time. So what I thought I would do today is just share a couple of case studies of what we're doing within our current grant structure, which is all around social license. And then you can click the barcode, the QR codes at the bottom and get a sample of the work. But again, it's the right message, the right audience, the right message, and the right time. This first case takes place in my home state of Maine, where we have a really interesting conflict and tension between wealthy landowners that overlook farms. They bought land. They may have bought land, and many years ago, generations ago, because of the Maine coastline, the lobster boat scene going by. But that's changing, right? And so Maine in particular is running into a lot of headwinds in opposition. So what we thought we could maybe help do is with World Wildlife Fund is remind those folks that the largest conservation organization in the world is actually supportive of what you're doing because of all the benefits we talked about in the first couple of slides. So in a local program, a theater program, which is really a lot of Broadway talent comes up to the mid-coast of Maine and has 4 or 5 shows each summer. A lot of the same audience that attends those actually are, we believe, the shorefront owners. And we want to be able to just be out in front of them and say, you know, WWF, the Panda, supports kelp farming. And we went into it thinking we'd get a little bit of engagement. We got 6% engagement with that QR code out of the total audience attending. So we'll take that as a win, and we're going to continue to expand on that going forward this year in a little bit other ways. The next one has been a program led by Annie Lee, who's here, working with the Maine Aquaculture Innovation Center to try to bring a book that your very own teams from AFDF started a couple of years ago. I think your team had put about 100 books that we funded into the school systems and libraries. Julie Decker got great feedback from that. We took that same concept, scaled it up with MAIC in Maine. They had 75 teachers come to a live workshop where they had different stations to learn how to do art projects with seaweed, how to do basic cooking classes and bring food into the diet. They had a couple different art projects. It was really cool. They had a touch tank and other things. But the idea was bring teachers to a workshop, bring seaweed to them, and then see what happens. And we've already had, we think, 2 or 3 classes that we know of have started to implement this into their own classrooms. I'm going to be part of a reading day outside of Portland later this month, where they're going to read a particular book that was written by a Maine author to the kids. So it's really starting to take hold. It goes back to what the Lieutenant Governor said yesterday. You know, educating the kids on this topic is key, and we're really thinking hard about how to invest more and raise money and do more projects in this the best we can. And then I'll leave you with this only because we talked about it yesterday. The barcode's there if you wanted to get to the Ocean 2050 video that I showed yesterday. And I think that's my time, right? Or is that my time? I don't think that's my time. So that's all I got. Oh, I got one more thing. This might be the most important one. We're building a compendium online that hopefully in May we'll be able to launch it. And the idea is to have all these videos, all the content, the PDFs, the teachers' kits, everything we've done in the last couple of years under the current grant available to all you folks to do, to repurpose and to reuse and to take home and do what you want with. So that's what so feel free to sign up there. It should take you to a little barcode, a little form to fill out, and it comes to me so I can email you when it happens. If you can't get in, just email me directly at this link, and we'll make sure you get added. But that's what I want to share with you today.
Thanks, Todd. I would share that the book that Todd was speaking about, with Little Kelp from Our Friends, we just have been giving a couple copies to our mariculture liaisons in the various regions, and please contact them if you would like them to come engage with a school or whatever. If you want to borrow that book, we want to make sure that these resources are getting out to everybody so that we're all kind of doing the work together. Next up, our presenter, Olivia Rebanal with Ecotrust, is presenting an abstract entitled Overview of Alaska Mariculture Cluster Grant Evaluation. Welcome, Olivia.
Thank you. Nice to be here. When you say abstract, it makes it sound academic, and I want to admit I'm not an academic. I'm here to share with you a little bit about Ecotrust and our work with the Alaska Mariculture Cluster and our evaluation work. My name is Olivia Rebanal. I'm Ecotrust's Chief Impact Officer. I also wanted to take a moment to do some shout outs to the team that's here. Our work is always done in partnership and in collaboration. That includes internally. It takes a team. You met Kailani Booth earlier today, who is our mariculture catalyst through the Southeast Sustainable Partnership. We also have here John Bodkowski, our Senior Director of Coastal Communities and Fisheries, and we also have our Vice President, Kara Briggs, in the back. Hi, Kara. Our Vice President of Tribal Lands and Water Stewardship, and they're very important teammates for us to continue the work that we do here. Our organization, Ecotrust, has been around for over 30 years, and we work at the intersection of equity, the economy, and the environment. And we do not do this alone, as I referenced earlier. We have over 30 projects from Alaska Oregon, Washington, and into Northern California. And in doing those projects, we have over 100 partners that help us accomplish our work. And so using community engagement and liaisons like Keilani and other staff is a really important model and the foundation to the way that we approach our work. We currently have 5 staff situated in Southeast Alaska, and our organization is headquartered in Portland, Oregon. I feel challenged to meet the timeline. I'm watching the time go down, so I'm kind of rushing. Ecotrust work in mariculture is very multifaceted. You heard a little bit from Keilani earlier today in his role to be a liaison, and as I mentioned, he's bolstered by a team of many others. But this element of the work that I wanted to share with you is our role as a contractor to the Southeast Conference to do the evaluation work. We've split up our work into 4 phases over the next 3 years, which includes a planning stage, create a theory of change, help inform the indicators and a plan for collecting them. So we really want to understand this cluster's impacts, overall impacts of the projects and the works in the community. We are going to work to develop and track metrics in order to demonstrate our success. And demonstrating success is going to be very important as we want to procure ongoing federal support as well as other philanthropic support for these activities moving forward. As you can tell here, the movement is building and it's very palpable. And so I think from the beginning, in order to establish an evidence base for the power of this industry is going to be important, and that's part of the reason we're involved. We're also going to be explicitly tracking our progress toward the named equity commitments of this cluster, which includes 25% of resources being directed to Alaska Native communities and 25% of the resources being directed to underserved and rural communities. And this is an iterative process. The 2 of the 4 phases of our work together will be ongoing developmental iteration work, where we'll be engaging with the community, determining where we are succeeding and where we might be failing, and turning obstacles into opportunities. Our approach, and we do have a robust measurement and evaluation team, which I think is very special to our organization. We have an economist on staff, and we have a team that supports the work of measurement analysis and evaluation. It is always equity-centered, people-centered, and principles-based. We've been engaged in some work to develop equity-based principles in our work of evaluation, understanding that the work of evaluation is an area where we can look to dismantle discrimination and biases and integrate racial equity and other types of sovereignty into the practice of evaluation. We have a very mixed method approach. We believe in qualitative and quantitative approaches to telling the story. This includes stories and numbers you'll see on our website. That's the approach, the way that we represent the impact that we have. And we intend to engage with the community through surveys, focus groups, interviews, and more. Our approach is definitely informed, fully participatory in the community. Our data collection and even our identification of impacts is informed by what the community is telling us what success looks like to them, and that's actually where we like to begin as we start to craft out what our impact and our plan for collecting impact is going to be. We have an explicit commitment not only to include but to integrate tribes, Alaska Native corporations, Alaska Native individuals, and other small business and other impacted parties. And that is our approach always to our work. Let's see. And this is a QR code that you can scan to engage to learn more. Throughout the communities, we're looking for as much engagement throughout the region as possible. This project is very comprehensive and spans many stakeholders and partners, so we want to be sure to be engaged in your specific communities. So please, you'll see some of these postcards distributed out on the tables, and it looks like I was given extra time. I'm over by 25 seconds. Thanks for having me. Great session. Great to meet you all.
Thanks, Olivia. Our next speaker is Kate Consenstein with Rising Tide Communication. She's here to present and give us an overview on the new Mariculture Communications Plan that they're currently developing. So welcome, Kate.
Thank you so much. Can everyone hear me? Great. My name is Kate Consenstein, and I'm the principal at Rising Tide Communications. We're an Anchorage-based strategic communications firm. We have a long history of expertise with seafood, ocean, marine-related content. So we're very proud to be able to do this project with the Alaska Mariculture Alliance. Along with our subcontractor, Agnew Beck, we are working on developing a public relations, outreach, and engagement plan, and that will be, for the entire mariculture industry. The plan is intended to be a roadmap for communicating with stakeholders and the public at large, who have a lot to learn about the mariculture industry as it develops. To facilitate this growth, the AMA really needs to understand what the perceptions, concerns, and limitations are that are held by the communities and other stakeholders about the industry's growth. And so we have been undertaking the process of identifying what those concerns are, so that we can then recommend the methods for addressing them and making the mariculture industry a model for being a good communicator to its communities, to tribal entities and tribal stakeholders, potential participants, and Alaskans at large that are interested in how this industry might grow, contribute to the economy, and other things. And the goal is to build this community-based support, and that's what Todd is really talking about with his comments about social license. So that's what we're here to do. And to inform this plan, we conducted 2 phases of series of interviews with partners, representatives, a wide range of industry perspectives. And we are here to just report on what some of the things that we uncovered from those interviews are, and then we will move on to the next phase, which will be developing the plan. The perspectives that we uncover are likely not going to be a surprise to anyone in this room, but I'm going to go through some of the opportunities and risks that were most commonly repeated. Overall, our interviewees were excited about the opportunities that they identified for the growing mariculture industries. Specifically, we heard a lot about some of the opportunities in the shellfish industry and also for kelp, animal feed, bioplastics, biofuels. These were some of the things that people frequently brought up as real areas of opportunity that had, a lot of potential for growth. We overall were hearing more depth and breadth about what those opportunities were than what the risks were. There certainly was a lot of commentary about risks and concerns, but overall the range of opportunities was broader, specifically about economic expansion and diversification. But some of the most significant risks that we heard about, had to do with the fact that the markets are so underdeveloped, especially for kelp. Specifically that low real-time demand, there's so much excitement and chatter about kelp, but we still in Alaska are struggling to find a systematic buyer ecosystem. So that demand is not there yet. And then conversely, the kind of opposite issue that shellfish has, which is that the productions is insufficient to meet the demand at this point. I think one of my biggest take-homes is that mariculture in Alaska is not a monolith. We're not going to be able to communicate effectively about one industry because the concerns and opportunities are so different. And that's something that we will plan to address in our recommendations. And then we also heard that there was a lot of agreement that the small markets run a real risk of keeping up as some of the bigger markets come online. And then some key takeaways that will guide us as we're moving forward is that this, positive perception is widespread, but the feelings of uncertainty and concern really came up a lot. Many interviewees cited a lack of awareness and understanding about mariculture and what the benefits and risks were. We heard a lot of pushback and concerns about the corporatization of mariculture, and there's alignment overall about some of the threats that the big industry poses to rural and tribal communities. And we heard that villages and communities would like to see the market prioritize small operations and existing fishing families as the market opportunity develops, but there's not a lot of consensus on how an organically developing market would prioritize those. And then also a lack of understanding about how institutions, such as the state of Alaska, or entities like AMA or AMC would be positioned to actually do that. There's generally a lack of understanding and awareness about mariculture, and that's where educational campaigns are going to come in, and that's what we are going to be actively focusing on. And then we could do a better job, I think, helping disseminate some of the products that are being developed, especially through the Build Back Better grant outreaches. And then also we heard a lot of consensus that these tribal and indigenous voices are underrepresented. We heard a lot of factors named about why this is, mistrust within communities, a lack of a business case for Native corporations to be involved, and then a lot of static about all the things that are happening in all different levels that are hard for some organizations to engage with, because there's so many different workshops or groups or email newsletters. So some consolidation of communication is definitely in order. I just want to take a moment to thank everybody that has participated in the interviews. We'll be conducting a webinar through AMA to share the plan when it's completed sometime this spring. And then please feel free to see me after the session if you have suggestions or ideas about how we go next.
Thanks, Kate, and thanks to all the presenters. We're going to be opening up for questions. Again, please utilize the Slido app or raise your hand and somebody will come to you with a microphone. I'll start out. I know that Rising Tide and AgNewBek engaged with a lot of the folks in this room today on the project. But in the event that there's somebody here in the room that feels they have some perspective to share, my question to you, Kate, would be, is there an opportunity for them to engage with you? I know you're getting towards the end, but is there any potential for a bit further engagement?
Thanks. Yes, we would still welcome the opportunity to hear from folks about suggestions they have specifically about outreach and communications. Please just feel free to come see me after this, or you can also come to my colleague Alice there with her hand up. And we'd love to take in as many diverse voices and ideas as possible.
Great. The floor is officially open to questions from you all. Is there anybody out there with a question? Clearly, our presenters are very thorough with their presentations.
The coma has kicked in, I think.
I'm sorry?
The coma has kicked in.
Yeah. Oh, here we are. The question is, we know about the ecological benefits of kelp farms, but what are the potential impacts of kelp farms to habitat or wildlife, and would it be good to study those now?
I will just add that I can't speak to the potential impacts of farms, but it is good to address as many concerns like that as possible, so that when you have community concerns, you know how to respond. So I agree, it would be good to study those now.
I would agree with that. Yeah, I think that's a little out of the scope of the work that the panel does, but I would say that would be the case as well. We should be studying all potential impacts that the growth of this industry has across the board on local economies for the benefit, or on local ecosystems for potential negative impacts. We want to grow this responsibly because we want this to be something that we have in Alaska for the long term, and the only way that we're going to facilitate that is through really being mindful of how we grow this up. Question for Todd. I loved hearing your examples from Maine. Does WWF have plans to engage further in Alaska?
I can tell you that what we're doing right now is trying to promote the films and the content we have, and that's under the current grant we have that ends at the end of this year. We're working on ways to continue to work in Alaska beyond that. But right now, it's all about Nick Mangini and his film, and how do we get that out, as well as the Oceans 2050 films that has Leah in it and others. So if there's ways you can think of to help promote those, whether they're film festivals or online film festivals, give me a shout. I'm happy to help. And then, I mean, that's from a communications perspective. If you want to talk about more programmatic work, Bailey Moritz is the one to be chatting with about that.
Great, thanks, Todd. This question is to Kate. Can you share more about the sample of interviewees from your research? I imagine this is referring to cross-section, and maybe how you came about populating the list.
Yeah, that is a great question. Our first phase of interviews was to start with the board of the Alaska Mariculture Alliance, which is fairly harvester / farmer heavy, as well as the governing body of the Alaska Mariculture Cluster, which has representation from Native corporations, tribal entities, and also the economic development councils of the various regions, as well as the newly hired mariculture liaisons and their hosting organizations. So that was our kind of first pass, and we asked them for recommendations about the next group, which is a mix of representatives from tribal governments, tribal communities, Alaska research institutions, folks from Sea Grant, and I can say that of the total interviews, we had 34% that represented an Indigenous perspective.
Thanks, Kate. While your mic's hot, there's a request if you could talk a little bit more about the difference between oyster and kelp farm processing and markets. And Todd, you may be able to shed a little light on this as well.
Yeah, that's a big question, but I will give you my nickel-sized synopsis, which is that currently what we heard about shellfish, the shellfish situation is that most of the farms are able to sell what they produce, that they have pretty well-established markets, and that they don't have the same processing and kind of scale issues that the seaweed market or seaweed farm infrastructure does, and that there is no significant and stable buyer in Alaska for kelp at this time, but there is a great deal of interest in people developing their own kelp operations. So there's a great deal of friction or push-pull there that we don't have a clear immediate path to resolve, but there are a lot of efforts underway.
Next question, are there programs or resources that would help pay kelp farmers for implementing beneficial wildlife practices or monitoring? Again, might be a little out of the perspective of this panel, and quite frankly, I'm not sure that I know anything off the top of my head. Definitely something we're interested in learning more about, so we'll share that among our through our channels if and when. Another question, do you have any plan to work with school districts in Alaska to do mariculture education? Before I turn it over to the panel, I would say that through the Alaska Mariculture Alliance's liaison program, we are looking at that. We have an outreach committee that has been having discussions about putting together a curriculum or toolkits for school teachers to be able to utilize that we would share broadly. If you're interested in that kind of topic or that type of work, we welcome more members to our outreach committee and more perspectives, so you can see us at the AMA booth if you'd like to talk a little bit more about that.
I can add to that in that from the education, we would love to raise a whole ton of money, millions of dollars, to be able to do more of what we did in Maine to scale up what you guys have done here in Alaska. We saw a really strong enthusiasm from the teachers. So what you can do on yourselves is just reach out to Maine Aquaculture Innovation Center, and that QR code took you right to their page. You could see what they've been doing and learn from that, and maybe invite them into a call and help put together more kits. But yeah, we definitely, as a major strategy going forward, would like to do more of the education in classrooms. So yeah, looking forward to seeing what happens there.
Just to add that I think it really segues nicely and connects with the workforce development conversation that we had earlier. So I look to, the SEC that is managing the whole cluster of activities to see how we can best integrate. I think that part of the advantage for our organization, Ecotrust being a regional organization, we can draw on parallels that we've had successes in working with school districts throughout Oregon and Washington in farm-to-school initiatives or educational programming. And we also do actually have a mobile greenhouse in Southeast Alaska that is a teaching classroom for certain school districts throughout our region.
Great, thanks. I would add that that the Mariculture liaison in Southeast, who is working under Ecotrust, Kailani Booth, who spoke earlier today, the community in Metlakatla has been doing programs with their students, hands-on stuff, going out in kayaks, harvesting, things like that. He gets very animated talking about it. He's very proud of the work that they're doing. I'm sure he'd love to talk to you a little bit more about it if you have the opportunity to engage with him. Looks like we have time for maybe this one more question. I haven't seen any hands come out in the audience, although the lights are pretty bright up here. And this one looks like it's geared towards Todd. How can you measure the reach of the films and that they're reaching the right audiences and making an impact?
It's a great question, and luckily with modern, everything mostly on digital, you can track views. The QR codes should be different for every channel you do, so that the ad that I did on the theater was a specific URL just for that program, so I know exactly how many people looked at that video from that space. You can digital marketing and digital social campaigns are pretty common now. You can tell someone you want a left-handed dog walker, and that ad will be placed, or that video will be sort of prompted for them. So there's all sorts of ways you can get at what you're doing. As far as measurement, we have big metrics we're trying to reach. The key one is around headline sentiment in the global and then regions we work. So we're working with our science team to build an open source algorithm or reporting method to scrape the web on a regular basis, look at headlines, assess whether they're positive or negative, and hopefully the trend is going up, because we want folks to be writing positive clickbait rather than negative clickbait. That's the long-term plan. So we have some good plans there. So yeah, lots of ways to test and measure.
Great, thanks. Thanks for all the great questions, friends. That's our time. Please give a round of applause to our panelists and all the great work they're doing.